Okay, when you think about those truly epic rivalries, the kind that really define an industry, maybe even culture, you kind of have to talk about Pepsi versus Coca-Cola.
Absolutely. It's a classic.
It's so much more than just, which soda you prefer.
Yeah.
For anyone in marketing, it's like a masterclass playing out in real time for over 100 years. Branding, psychology, how to stay relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So today we're doing a Mangrove Marketing Insight deep dive. We've got this great piece. It's actually titled What We Can Learn from Coca-Cola and Pepsi's Brand, and it just came out today, July 8th, 2025.
Fresh off the presses.
Exactly. And our goal here is to really unpack it, go beyond the headlines and look at the strategies, the really bold campaigns, the culturally significant stuff that define this whole competition.
Yeah, it's perfect timing because this rivalry, it just gives marketers such a clear view of how brand positioning evolves, how creative competition works,
Yeah.
all designed to win over consumers, their loyalty, and their taste buds.
Right. And it's amazing how different their approaches have been from the get-go.
That's the core of it, really.
So let's start right there. How did these two giants fundamentally position themselves differently, especially early on?
Well, Coca-Cola, they pretty meticulously built this identity around being, the original, the timeless classic brand.
Okay.
Their whole message for decades has circled around happiness, tradition, that emotional connection. You look at their slogans, things like open happiness.
Yeah.
That wasn't just about drinking a Coke. It was about the feeling, the shared moment.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Or taste the feeling. Again, it's about those universal sort of uplifting experiences.
Yeah.
Coke positioned itself as part of the fabric of good time, almost like nostalgia in a bottle.
Okay, so Coke is the classic, the tradition. What about Pepsi?
Pepsi took a very different tack, a deliberate one. They carved out this youthful, sometimes kind of rebellious identity.
The challenger.
Exactly. Where Coke looked back, Pepsi looked forward. Their campaigns consistently tied into pop culture, into what was new, what was next, especially with emerging generations. And this goes way back. Think about the Pepsi generation ads in the 60s. That was huge. And you still see it today, right? They partner with current influencers, massive music stars like Beyonce. It's a clear signal. We're young, we're fresh, we're now.
That contrast is so stark, isn't it? And our source, the Mangrove Marketing Insight, really hits on this. It says basically that strong positioning helps you stay relevant, whether you lean into legacy like Coke or, lead with modernity like Pepsi.
Yeah.
It really makes you think about your own brand, doesn't it? Like, what's your core identity? But thinking about those initial positions, which one do you think was maybe the harder path to take at first? Claiming classic or claiming the future?
That's interesting. You could argue Coke had it easier initially because, well, they were first. They were the established thing. Their challenge was more about maintaining it. Pepsi, though, they had to actively create their space against this giant. They couldn't just be, they had to give people a compelling reason not to choose Coke. So that youthful rebellion thing wasn't just marketing fluff. It was a strategic necessity to differentiate. It demanded, constant creativity.
That makes a lot of sense. So speaking of creativity, let's get into the campaigns. This is where it gets really interesting, where you see those strategies in action.
Oh, yeah. This is where the gloves came off, so to speak.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the most audacious examples ever was the Pepsi challenge back in '75.
The blind taste test.
Exactly. Straight up blind taste test. They went right to the people, set up tables, and basically said, okay, which one do you actually like better? No labels.
So bold.
And the result, a lot of people, maybe surprisingly, picked Pepsi. It wasn't just clever. It ignited this massive brand confrontation. It really put Coke on the back foot for a bit and tapped into that idea that maybe your perception doesn't always match reality.
Wow. Okay, so how did Coke counter that kind of direct attack?
Well, they leaned into their strength, emotional connection. Fast forward a bit, think about 2011, the Share a Coke campaign. Huge global success.
Oh yeah, with the names on the bottles.
Exactly. They swapped their iconic logo for popular names. It wasn't about taste anymore. It was pure personalization.
Yeah.
It tapped into individuality, connection, finding your name or a friend's name.
Made it feel personal.
Totally. And it exploded on social media. It showed that emotional connection, especially when it feels personal and shareable, can be incredibly powerful, especially in the digital age.
Two very different approaches to grabbing attention.
And then you've got Pepsi, again, always pushing, especially with big cultural moments like the Super Bowl. Their Super Bowl ads are legendary, right? Star-studded, usually pretty bold, often funny.
big productions.
Yeah, they consistently hit those themes. Youth, music, innovation. They weren't just running ads, they were creating these mini events. And remember their long sponsorship of the halftime show that turned a 30-second spot into this massive year-round conversation about music and entertainment, way beyond a normal ad buy.
Absolutely. These are definitely master classes. And our analysis, the MMI piece, points out this key lesson. These high-impact campaigns work because they mix consumer psychology with what's culturally relevant right now.
That's the sweet spot.
It's not just what you say, but how it connects to people's feelings or what's happening in the world. So for you listening, think about those campaigns. Which one really stuck with you? The boldness of the Pepsi challenge, the connection of share a Coke, or maybe the sheer spectacle of Pepsi at the Super Bowl? Why did it resonate?
It's fascinating to see how differently they played it.
Okay, let's shift gears a little. Let's talk about product innovation and maybe even riskier, rebranding, messing with the core product or identity. That's high stakes.
Oh, incredibly high stakes. And the most famous, or maybe infamous, example has to be Coca-Cola's new Coke debacle in the 80s.
Right. The cautionary tale.
Totally. They tried to reformulate the main product,
Yeah.
partly driven by internal stuff, maybe even a reaction to the Pepsi challenge success. And, well, it bombed spectacularly.
People were not happy.
Not even close. There was genuine outrage. People demanded the original back. It was intense. But here's the really fascinating part. The failure, paradoxically, ended up strengthening loyalty. When they brought back the original, rebranding it as Coke Classic, it became this huge moment. It proved how much people loved the original. Exactly. People didn't realize how attached they were until it was almost gone. It showed the power of that deep emotional bond, maybe even more than taste itself.
So how did Pepsi handle innovation compared to that?
Well, true to form, Pepsi's been much more experimental, more aggressive with product line extensions. Just think about all the limited edition flavors they've rolled out over the years.
Yeah, there have been a lot.
They're constantly testing things, trying to appeal to different tastes, keep things fresh. And beyond just flavors, they seem quicker to update their logo, try tech stuff in packaging, always trying to look current, forward-thinking.
Yeah.
It lets them innovate without messing with their core in the same way Coke did, because often these are additions, not replacements.
That's a really key takeaway from the Mangrove marketing insight, isn't it? It says not all rebrands work, but if handled well, even failure can be leveraged to reinforce brand identity. That really makes you stop and think. It raises that big question. What risks are worth taking for a brand? When do you pivot versus when do you hold firm, even if people are yelling? How do you even judge that?
It's such a tricky balance. New Coke kind of shows that sometimes the brand's real strength isn't just the formula, it's that intangible connection. Messing with that identity can be riskier than tweaking the product.
So the risk calculation depends on what people truly value about you.
Yeah, I think so. Is it the thing itself or the feeling, the history, the identity wrapped around it? Knowing that difference is probably key.
That's crucial. Okay, let's jump to the modern battlefield, digital and social media. How does this rivalry play out online today? It's a completely different landscape.
It really is.
Yeah.
But you still see their core strategies reflected online. Coca-Cola, they tend to lean into that heartwarming storytelling, inclusive campaigns, their whole Real Magic platform now. It's all about celebrating human connection, using digital platforms to do that.
Okay.
You see a lot of content focused on universal themes, bringing people together, positive emotions. It feels like a natural extension of their traditional message, often using like longer form video or emotional visuals.
And Pepsi, still the challenger vibe online.
Definitely. They go for trendy, often celebrity-driven digital stuff. You see them heavily on platforms like TikTok, using short, punchy videos, working with influencers all the time. They're speaking directly to those younger, digitally native audiences.
Right, meeting them where they are.
Exactly. Their content is usually fast-paced, visually grabbing, designed to fit right into current social trends. It reflects that ongoing focus on pop culture, youth, being hyper-relevant right now. They're often chasing that immediate buzz, that virality.
It really underscores how well they both seem to know their target audiences online. And the MMI source hammers this home. Know your audience and tailor your digital presence to match their values and habits.
Crucial.
It's not just about being on TikTok or Instagram. It's about understanding the language, the look, the feel, the culture of that space, and the people in it. Audience insight feels more critical than ever online.
Absolutely paramount.
Wow. We've covered so much ground here, from century-old positioning battles to cutting-edge digital tactics,
Mm.
it's just so clear that Pepsi versus Coke is way more than soda. It really is a masterclass in branding, storytelling, and, importantly, adapting while trying to stay true to who you are.
Yeah, definitely. And what stands out is, Coke playing that long game, consistent emotional storytelling rooted in tradition, and then Pepsi constantly reinventing, using pop culture to stay fresh and young.
Two different playbooks.
Exactly. Both incredibly successful in their own ways, which proves there isn't just one path to building an enduring brand. Which leads right into the final thought from the Mangrove Marketing Insight source. And it's a big one for marketers. There's no single right way to succeed.
Yeah.
There's no magic formula. But what is essential, no matter which path you take, seems to be that consistency in your core identity, having bold creativity, and maybe above all, truly understanding your audience deeply and continuously. Those feel like the constants.
That really sums it up beautifully. Okay, so here's a final thought to leave you with, something to kind of mull over, thinking about everything we discussed, especially that new Coke situation. How might a perceived failure actually end up strengthening a brand's identity? How could it deepen loyalty in the long run?
Interesting angle.
And what could that mean for how you think about your own challenges or setbacks,
Yeah.
whether it's in your business, your brand, maybe even just personally? How could a misstep, if you handle it right, maybe paradoxically reinforce who you are and even make people appreciate you more? Something to chew on.